Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. In a world that constantly glorifies power, success, and speed, few understand the profound strength it takes to look inward. Mental strength is not about resistance or domination. It is about awareness, maturity, and harmony between the conscious and unconscious realms of the self. Today, let us uncover 10 signs that you are not only mentally strong, but truly mature, and how these traits align with the path of individuation, the soul's journey toward wholeness. Your shadow is not your enemy. It is your calling in disguise. It is the part of you were taught to reject, suppress, or deny. The anger you weren't allowed to feel. The desires you were told were shameful. The ambitions you were taught to dim so that others could feel comfortable around you. The parts you buried because someone said, "This is not who you should be." But the truth is, everything hidden in the shadow is not there to harm you. It is there to awaken you. These disowned parts of your personality are fragments of your potential. Raw, powerful energies that have simply not yet been integrated into your conscious self. What frightens you about your own nature is often the very thing that contains the fuel for your highest growth. That rage you suppress could become fierce protection. That jealousy could become passionate drive. That sadness could lead you to deep compassion. And that arrogance you hide could evolve into authentic confidence. To meet the shadow is not to destroy yourself, but to come into contact with your totality. True strength is not found in being perfect. It is found in being whole. And you cannot be whole if you are divided within. If one part of you lives in the light and the other in the dark, and you pretend the dark does not exist, the longer you run from your shadow, the more power it has over you. It shows up in your projections, your patterns, your reactivity, your sabotaging behavior. But when you turn toward it with awareness, with humility, and with courage, it begins to soften. It begins to reveal itself not as a monster, but as a messenger. You were never meant to be a fragmented version of yourself. You were meant to be a unified being. Someone who knows their light and their darkness, and holds both with wisdom. The shadow is not the place you lose yourself. It is the place you find your hidden self. It is your unlived life, your forgotten voice, your dormant fire. That thing you're afraid to look at. That's where your purpose lies. That part of yourself you keep locked away. It holds the exact qualities you need to evolve, to love more fully, to create more deeply, and to lead more authentically. The shadow is not a curse, it is a key, and the door it unlocks is the one that leads straight to the core of who you really are. So don't run from your shadow. Sit with it, listen to it, let it speak, let it teach you. And when you emerge from that inner cave, not as someone who has slain the dragon, but as someone who has befriended it, you will know a freedom, a power, and a peace that cannot be taken from you. Because the shadow you feared most, it was never your downfall, it was your destiny, calling you home. You do not react, you reflect. There is a vast difference between being impulsively driven by emotion and consciously choosing your response. The emotionally reactive person is a prisoner of the moment, easily swayed by external events, triggered by words and governed by invisible words. But when you begin to mature mentally and emotionally, a transformation occurs. You stop being controlled by your emotions, and instead begin to listen to them with curiosity and depth. You become an observer of your inner world, rather than a slave to it. When someone says something hurtful, you no longer retaliate instinctively. Instead, you ask yourself, why did that affect me so deeply? What part of me was touched? You trace the feeling back to its origin, not to assign blame, but to understand. This space between stimulus and response becomes sacred. It is in that pause that your strength lies. That silence isn't weakness, it is wisdom, because in the silence, your unconscious speaks. And when you listen to it, you begin to see the deeper layers of your psyche, and realize that what all you feel is the truth of the moment. It is often the residue of past wounds echoing through the present. You stop taking things personally. You realize that people act from their own projections, insecurities, and fears. Their reaction to you says more about them than it does about you. And when you reflect rather than react, you stop feeding their fire. You become a mirror, not a match. Your energy becomes less about defending your ego and more about preserving your peace. This reflective nature doesn't mean you're passive or detached. On the contrary, it means you are profoundly engaged with yourself, with your values, with your inner life. You no longer speak just to be heard, or act just to be right. You respond from a place of grounded clarity, not emotional chaos. You realize that not every battle is yours to fight, and not every provocation deserves your attention. With reflection comes freedom. You are no longer pulled in 100 directions by every emotional wave. You develop emotional sobriety, a calm, grounded state where you can feel deeply without being swept away. You honor your feelings, but you are not ruled by them. And in doing so, you create a powerful inner sanctuary, a space where clarity reigns and chaos dissipates. This is not a trait of weakness, it is a profound sign of strength. It means you've become the master of your inner world, not its victim. It means you've chosen evolution over reaction, growth over ego, peace over performance. It means you've understood one of the most vital truths of self-realization, that your power lies not in controlling the outer world, but in mastering your response to it. And once you begin to live from this space, people will feel your presence. They will sense that you are not easily shaken, not because you are cold, but because you are conscious. Not because you don't feel, but because you've learned how to feel wisely. That's what it means to reflect instead of react. It is not the absence of emotion, it is the presence of awareness. You set boundaries without guilt, not because you have hardened, not because you no longer care, but because you have learned the sacred value of your own energy. You have come to understand that without limits is not love, it is self-abandonment. And maturity teaches you this hard truth, that saying yes to everyone else at the expense of yourself is not kindness, it is a silent form of self-betrayal. You used to stretch yourself thin, overextend, give more than you had, just to be liked, just to be enough. But over time, that inner exhaustion taught you something. It taught you that constantly trying to be everything for everyone leaves you feeling like nothing to yourself. You began to feel the cost of people pleasing in your body, in your soul, in your quiet moments. And finally you listened. Now, you no longer explain your boundaries endlessly. You don't seek permission to protect your peace. You simply honor what you know to be true, that you have limits, and those limits are not a flaw. They are a form of wisdom. Your no is no longer laced with apology. Your yes is no longer automatic. Every choice you make flows from a deeper place of integrity, from a knowing that you cannot pour from an empty vessel. You recognize that people may not always understand your boundaries. Some may guilt you. Some may push against them. Some may walk away. But you also know that those who truly love and respect you will honor the lines you draw. They will not see your limits as rejection. They will see them as your self-respect. And those who don't respect your boundaries were never meant to have unrestricted access to you in the first place. Boundaries are not walls that separate you from others. They are doors that teach others how to enter your life with respect. They are expressions of clarity, not cruelty. You are not building a fortress. You are tending to a garden, and in that garden, you decide who is allowed to stay, who must go, and what kind of energy is welcome. Guilt no longer confuses your decisions. You've learned that guilt is often the residue of old conditioning. Voices from your past telling you that your worth is tied to how much you give, how small you stay, how quiet you become. But you've outgrown those voices. You now choose authenticity over approval. You choose self-preservation over performance. This is what emotional maturity looks like. This is what inner strength feels like. The ability to love others while still loving yourself. The courage to disappoint someone else rather than constantly disappointing yourself. The wisdom to know that boundaries are not rejections. They are recognitions of your own value. And in setting those boundaries, you become more grounded, more whole, more free. You stop chasing acceptance and start embodying it from within. You are no longer at the mercy of other people's expectations. You are in alignment with your own truth, and that is a power no one can take from you. You embrace paradox and complexity. You no longer seek comfort in absolutes or rigid categories, because life has shown you that truth does not live in black and white. It lives in the gray, in the tension between opposites, in the in-between spaces that cannot be easily labeled or defined. The immature mind craves certainty. It clings to simple answers, to either or thinking, because complexity feels threatening. But you have outgrown that. You have come to see that the deeper truth is often contradictory, layered, and unresolved. And that is what makes it real. You've learned that you can be strong and still feel afraid. You can be kind and still set fierce boundaries. You can love someone and still choose to walk away. You can grieve and be grateful at the same time. You can be healing and still feel broken in places. You hold these contradictions not as problems to be solved, but as realities to be honored. And in doing so, you've become more whole. Not because everything makes perfect sense, but because you've stopped needing it to. Carl Jung called this the union of opposites. The integration of the shadow with the light, the feminine with the masculine, the conscious with the unconscious. And you have started to live this integration. You no longer reject parts of yourself just because they don't fit into a tidy narrative. You've made space for contradiction within your own being. You are not just one thing. You are many things all at once. And you understand now that this is not confusion. This is truth. You've released the need to be right all the time. You listen more, judge less. You ask questions not to argue, but to understand. You've become less interested in declaring what is good, bad, and more interested in asking, what is this teaching me? Because you know that growth rarely comes from certainty. It comes from sitting with the unknown, from staying open even when things are uncomfortable, from not rushing to resolve everything. Embracing paradox has given you compassion. You no longer condemn people for their inconsistencies because you recognize your own. You see that no one is entirely good or bad, strong or weak. Everyone is a mixture of light and dark, love and fear, clarity and confusion. And that includes you. And instead of resenting this, you have come to respect it, because it means we're all human. It means we're all in process. This ability to hold tension without collapsing, to live in questions without demanding immediate answers, to accept life as it is, not as you wish it to be. That is mental strength. That is maturity. It is the capacity to sit in the fire of contradiction and not be consumed by it. It is what allows you to keep your heart open in a world full of uncertainty. It is what allows you to love without needing to control, to grieve without losing hope, to act with clarity even when the path is not clear. You embrace paradox because you understand that life is not here to be figured out like a puzzle. It is here to be lived, felt, experienced. And the more you allow the complexity, the more peace you find, not in having all the answers, but in trusting yourself to face whatever questions come. You no longer seek validation from the external world. At one time, the opinions of others shaped your identity like wet clay, molding your sense of worth based on approval, praise, or attention. You wore masks, played roles, and tried to fit into boxes that were never made for you. But that chapter has ended. You have come to know yourself, not as a reflection in someone else's eyes, but as a grounded presence within your own soul. You no longer need to be seen to feel real. You no longer need applause to know your value. You have found something deeper than validation. You have found self-recognition, and that is a strength that can't be taken away, because it comes from within. You forgive not because they deserve it, but because you do. You've discovered that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and hoping someone else gets sick. It burns you, breaks you in silence. And eventually, you get tired, not just of the pain others caused, but of carrying the heavy chains of the past. So you release, not to let them off the hook, but to free yourself from the emotional prison their actions built inside you. Forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing. It means choosing peace over pain, wisdom over wounds. It is a sacred act of self-love, a declaration that your future will not be held hostage by your past. You live by your inner compass, not the noise of the crowd. In a world that shouts constantly, what to wear, what to believe, what to chase, you have developed the rare ability to turn inward and listen to your own voice. The noise may be loud, but your soul is louder. You no longer follow trends or seek safety in consensus. You've realized that your truth may not always be popular, but it is always sacred, and you've made peace with being misunderstood, because the alternative, betraying yourself, costs far more. You've discovered that true direction doesn't come from maps drawn by others. It comes from the quiet clarity that rises when you are aligned with your values, your instincts, your path. You see others as mirrors, not enemies. You no longer fall into the trap of demonizing or idealizing people. You've come to understand that every interaction reveals something about you. Your wounds, your projections, your hidden needs. When someone irritates you, you ask, what part of myself am I seeing in them? When someone inspires you, you recognize that their light exists in you too. This self-awareness has changed your relationships profoundly. You no longer look to others to complete you, fix you, or break you. You meet them soul to soul, knowing that every encounter is a lesson, an invitation to grow, to see yourself more clearly, to evolve. You are no longer afraid of solitude. Once, being alone felt like abandonment. It echoed with loneliness and lack. But now, solitude has become your sanctuary. You've discovered that time spent with yourself is not time wasted. It is time reclaimed. In your own company you hear the truth beneath the noise. You heal. You rest. You remember who you are without distraction. Solitude has taught you that wholeness isn't found in other people. It's found in the quiet spaces where your own voice returns to you. You are no longer afraid of being alone because you've befriended yourself. And that friendship is the foundation of all true strength. These 5 signs, your inner compass, your ability to forgive, your freedom from validation, your wisdom in reflection, and your peace in solitude, are not just signs of mental strength. They are signs that you are waking up, becoming whole, becoming deeply, quietly powerful. And in that power, there is no need to prove. Only the presence of someone who has come home to themselves. You are mentally strong not because life has been easy, but because you chose depth over comfort, growth over ease, truth over illusion. And if you see yourself in these signs, then know this: you are not just surviving, you are transforming. This is the path of the awakened. This is the path of the individuated self.